Hello again, everyone. In this episode, we spend 4 wild nights in Selous and end up on the east coast at a town called Bagamoyo. We left Ruhr on a much better road and made this family's day by buying some of their handcrafted jewelry.
Asante.
Hey. In Narenga, we stopped off for a much needed stock up. The huge fresh fruit market was quite an eye-opener.
Please.
From an altitude of about 1,650 meters, a super scenic drive then took us down Kitonga Gorge, over the Ruhr River, which is 520 meters, that's right, an altitude drop of more than a kilometer, on past the Valley of the Baobabs, and to Tan Swiss Lodge where we stayed the night. The next day we transited Nyerere National Park and turned off at Morogoro, not knowing really what to expect. Over the railway line and down into the jungled valley. The villages we went through were all buzzing with activity and colour. We had descended another 300 meters and now came across a very muddy portion where a few vehicles were having fun. We were now about 100 meters above sea level and it was very humid. The rainy season was supposed to be over. At Matambwe Gate, after another eye-watering payment of fees, we were told that the road to Lake Tagalala camp was completely washed away, and it was suggested that we use the Mboyo picnic site. Late rains had delayed the roadworks and we came across a few raid gangs frantically trying to get ready for the busy season. At last we pulled into the picnic site as the sun was going down and found it to be just as we liked it, completely wild and no facilities.
What are we having for breakfast?
Sorry, I think I'm messing up your egg here. The next morning after a lekker breakfast, we decided to go and explore. Just to clear up the relationship between Nyerere and Selous. Selous was established back in 1886 and named after Frederick Selous and was approximately 5.5 million hectares big, making it then the 11th biggest wildlife sanctuary in the world. The Nyerere National Park was formed recently in 2019 and is made up of the northern portion of Selous Game Reserve. The Nyerere is now the largest national park in East Africa at over 3 million hectares. We noticed a few birds circling in the sky and decided to get a bit closer. We came across an old abandoned lodge on the banks of the Rufiji River and discovered an amazing spectacle. The river had receded, leaving an isolated lagoon, and the feeding frenzy was something to see. Literally hundreds of birds and crocs enjoying an easy meal. At one point we counted about 40 fish eagles in that one tree alone. And just look at all the crocs. It was difficult to know where to point your camera. There were fish eagles in the trees right above us, and the ground was littered with leftover bits of fish carcass. We've all heard about bird mobbing behavior, but have you ever seen fish eagles mobbing marabou storks? These two marabou were trying their best to pinch this fish eagle's lunch. We then decided to push on and try and find out just how bad the road to Lake Tagalala really was. This batelier had caught what we suspected was a bronze-winged courser, and he was gobbling it down as the sibling or mate looked on.
Phil, you should be able to see it.
We can't see the score. Climb out and come and stand next to me. No, what? It's a flyer. Okay, I'll come next to you.
There were a few times that the track that we were following just wasn't a track anymore. I thought that a bit more effort could have been made with the site of where Selous was buried. The washed away part was going to be tricky, especially for Phil, who had discovered that his low range wasn't working. Deep water and then a steep climb on a portion where the vehicle could easily get hung up. We decided it was not worth the risk. We made our way back to camp and got there just as it started to rain. We used one of the better looking afdakkies and decided to crack a cold one on what had been a very lacquer day. At this stage we discovered that perhaps we were not at the picnic site that we were supposed to be at and decided to go and look for the other one. This poor little guy had had a run-in with something that wanted to eat him. It never ceases to amaze me just how tough these creatures are. I think we saw one large game viewer over the whole time that we were there. We had the place to ourselves. That tail looks like it was put somewhere where it wasn't supposed to be. And then we found a really lekker spot next to a river and decided to stop for lunch. These white-tailed swallow thought that the awning would make a wonderful nesting spot. We had stopped off on the way at the bird feeding site to find only a fraction of the activity that we'd been so lucky to have witnessed the day before. The closest we got here was a purple-banded malachite sunbird. If you have a different opinion, please let me know in the comments. And there it was, the correct picnic site. Not nearly as wild, but 2 huge big baobabs and a proper loo. We all did a bit of washing and then we fixed Phil's fridge plug. It was very hot, but then the skies darkened and down it came. We were here for the night.
Lovely weather we're having here. Lovely weather for camping.
We had an audience of curious African openbill standing there just watching us set up for supper. We'd come through a muddy section getting here yesterday and we were a bit concerned about getting out. Phil was at the back and had to contend with the surface having been churned up by us. The Max tracks worked like a charm. Just as well, as there was no way I could get close enough to winch him out. Then we had the job of cleaning off this incredibly sticky mud so that I could get the tracks back into their brackets. The sight of the old dead tree was a welcome one. We felt like we'd returned home. We were back at the first picnic site for our last night. On the main road we saw that we weren't the only ones enjoying the mud. We had decided to change our route and exit on the eastern side and make our way towards Dar-es-salaam. We kind of spotted this town just north of Dar on the map called Bagamoyo and decided to go and see what it was like. Oh, I wonder if the name of this place has got anything to do with what they expect you to wear. To say that Dar-es-salaam has urban sprawl is an understatement. It extends for kilometers either side of the city. They'd obviously also had their fair share of rain. Bagamoyo was very much on the slave route back in the day. It served as a gathering point for slaves who were later to be shipped off to Zanzibar and then on to their final destinations. It was also an important trading port, as well as being the capital of German East Africa. I, Overlander, came up with a place called Funky Squid. It was owned and run by 2 South Africans, and they were very pleased to see us. We were the only guests, but he still got his kitchen all fired up for us. Said we could camp on the volleyball court.
So that's where we're camping. There's the sea. Isn't this just too beautiful?
And that's the restaurant where we were to enjoy probably the best plate of prawns I've ever had. Gee, I never thought I'd see a baobab tree growing on a beach. Well folks, that wraps up this episode, and we're not even halfway through our trip. I hope you enjoyed it, and please send the link on to your mates. If you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? In the next episode, we head up past Arusha and onto Ngorongoro and the Great Serengeti.